Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
Apparently, Ted, it happened around 10 o'clock this evening. John Lennon shot by a man who has been described, as you have said, by the police as deranged or a kook or something like that.
Anybody wondering whether or not John Lennon was shot by the CIA in a plot to stifle the peace movement is obviously not paying attention to the situation. Look what we got. Mark David Chapman, red catcher in the rye, like John Hinckley did right before he shot his guy. Something in that book carries weight, a trigger mechanism to switch him into a
Welcome back to the Big Plantation. We are live on FPRNradio.com. And we just had quite a heated discussion between Daryl Young and Nate Cox and Lucas Jewell, and it was quite interesting. And you know, I don't know what you think, Mike, but you know, I mean, I try to keep my opinions to myself, you know, most of the time, but you know, I think it actually raises more questions in my mind.
I mean, well, I honestly don't even want to speculate. You know, it was a heated discussion. I'm honestly sweating, and you know, I'm friends with both Daryl and Lucas. You know, on a personal level, I lived with both of them, and like I said, I wanted to provide that interview to give Daryl a chance to speak, and so I hope he got out everything that he wanted to get out, and I don't, with the stakes being that what is being thrown around and people's reputations and stuff like that, I honestly don't even want to get in the middle. I just want to provide that platform, and like I said, I hope he got everything out that he wanted to get out.
Yeah, and the stakes are very high. I mean, people need to think back to the time of Martin Luther King and, you know, the civil rights movement in the 60s and how far the federal government went. You know, I mean, we have it's literally a war for information. And when you got a guy like Adam Kokesh who's putting out information out there, they're going to attack him and they're going to try to bring him down. So I don't know. I'm not going to speculate anything either. So we'll just see how this all plays out. I know tomorrow Adam Kokesh is going to be giving out a podcast. So I guess Jeffrey Phillips will be uploading that on YouTube or providing the link for everybody. So, you know, definitely stay tuned to that because that should be an interesting podcast. And I didn't get a chance, but I want to thank Daryl and for calling in. You know, I really appreciate his call. And Absolutely. I also like to thank Nate and Lucas for you know, giving us a call in too. I mean, that was kind of it was kind of great to have them all at the same time. So, but I'd like to change the direction of this whole show because, you know, like you said, you're sweating. I'm a nervous wreck. But you know, I'd like to go and talk about jury nullification, and we have a very special James Babb on the line. And he's going to talk to us about a project that he is looking to have funded with down in Washington, D.C. at the D.C. Metro. James Babb, are you there?
Yes, I am. Great to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to hear you.
Always a pleasure to have Babb around.
So, Babb, I saw I came across your I don't know, is it GoFundMe? What website is it?
Well, I've got links to this project on my own Facebook, which if you go to my own personal domain, jamesbabb.com, it'll kick you to my Facebook page, and you'll see the links. Probably the easiest way to get there, jamesbabb.com. But you know, for your listeners that might not know about jury nullification, maybe we should just kind of give a brief overview so people know what we're talking about. Jury nullification is a centuries-old legal tradition that gives jurors the power to judge the law itself, not just the facts of the case. So if a law is bad, any juror can just say not guilty, and they can either hang the juror if it's just them, or if 12 jurors say that, then that person is found not guilty. This is something that has been done for hundreds of years. Notable examples include William Penn. He went on trial for the heinous crime of speaking to a group of Quakers without government permission. So trial for that.
Motherfucker.
And, so, yeah, I mean, these victimless crimes are nothing new. They've been around as long as the government has been around. So jury nullification has been one of the tools it was used to protect people that hid slaves. In the 1800s, the Fugitive Slave Act made it a crime, even if you lived in the North, to harbor a slave in your house. And the people used jury nullification to protect those that harbored slaves, because basically the jury would just refuse to convict because that's a ridiculous law. Jury nullification was used during alcohol prohibition because it became just very difficult to find a jury that would convict somebody for making wrong. So these are just a few of the examples, and today jury nullification is being used to protect victims of war on drugs. It's being used in food freedom cases to try to protect people that grew the wrong food without the right permit, or so as things get weirder and weirder, we get more and more things made illegal, whether it's collecting your own rainwater or putting a garden in your front yard, or taking the wrong medicine, or accidentally carrying your gun into New York. You never know what is going to be illegal. So jury nullification is becoming more and more important.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
anyway,
Now, what exactly is jury nullification?
It's just where a juror says, you know what, I'm going to vote my conscience. Yeah, that guy did have weed in his trunk. So what? I don't think that should be a crime. I'm going to say non-guilty. And that person goes home to his family instead of going to jail as a result. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on that juror from the day they show up at court for the first time. They're going to be asked a lot of questions like, you're going to do whatever the judge says, right? You always believe the cops, right? Okay. So if a juror wants to use this power, they kind of have to, start out through the initial screening process, just kind of nod through the questions like everybody else. There's no shame in lying to a liar. I mean, this system is so corrupt to the core. There's certainly nothing immoral about doing whatever you have to do to free a kidnapping victim. So anyway, if you end up on the jury and if it's a victimless crime, and then you just say not guilty, and you don't have to say why it's not guilty, and the judge might get mad and your other jurors might get mad, but it doesn't matter. The juror is the most powerful person in that courtroom, and what they say cannot be overridden, and that juror cannot face any consequences for these actions.
Yeah, absolutely. And this does go back in history, and a lot of people don't know about their jury rights. They go in there thinking, oh, I'm losing a day of work. Oh, they're only paying me $2 an hour, and they don't realize that they have the opportunity to choose whether or not somebody is guilty or not. I mean, that's a big burden to fall on your shoulders. It's not about the money. It's about, hey, this is somebody's freedom we're talking about here. What if the law is not a good law? What if it's something that you do on a daily basis? And it's such a big deal.
And that's getting more and more common, as James pointed out, with all the laws that are getting passed. There's something like how many? There's millions of laws, and they say you commit 3 felonies a day without your own knowledge. There's that many laws. So yeah, you could, and we see it all the time when you scan the news. Seriously, stories of police misconduct, police lying, police abuse, and stuff like that. But you know what? They get the benefit of the doubt in court. Or whether it's a cozy relationship or it's just because of the nature of them being police officers, they get the benefit of being believed more in court. So it is a very important function because there's a lot of odds stacked against the defense in a lot of these court cases when the cops are the prosecution.
Everything is stacked against the defendant. Everything. And, most people think that we have a justice system. They think like, oh, well, you get your day in court, and, if you're guilty, you go to jail. If you're not guilty, if you didn't do anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry. But, really, as soon as you have a personal experience or even just sit in on a trial, I recommend that everybody visit a courtroom. Hopefully not as the defendant the first time, but my first trial that I sat in on was Larkin Rose's trial, and boy, what an eye-opener that was. I thought I was going to see a trial about the income tax code. I knew what Larkin had said about the income tax, and he didn't, and he had his position, and I knew what the establishment was going to try to tear him out. I thought they were going to say, nope, this is the tax law, that's the tax law. That never came into that trial. The whole circus was this weird thing where every day they had to try to keep the jury from finding something else out. Like every single thing they did was about keeping the jury in the dark. No, it's like, no, Larkin can't say this. No, he can't show that document. No, he can't show his video. Nope, he's not allowed to mention that law. He can't talk about that statute. He can't talk about his letter campaign to H&R Block. Nope, you can't show that letter campaign to Congress. He can't show this. He can't do this. I mean,
sounds like jury tampering.
That's all they did. I mean, that's all they did was the whole structure was designed around keeping these jurors in the dark. I'm like, wow, I didn't have a lot of faith in the system at the time, but when you really see it firsthand, you understand it at a much deeper level.
I'd like to ask, just from your personal experience, because I know you were there for Larkin's trial, and I think you were there for N.J. Weidman's trial. Is there any safe haven in the courtroom to try and relay this information to the jury? Because I'm going to be fighting the same battle here soon against my completely and totally fraudulent DUI and resisting arrest charges. And so I certainly would like to know. And if anybody else is going to be in this situation, which is going to happen as more laws are passed, I think they would like to know.
No, and that's a good question, and it's a lot of it's going to be at the discretion of the guy in a black dress who's sitting up on a platform. They don't like it typically. Now, that's not saying that they all are going to be hostile towards this. There was a case up in New Hampshire recently where the judge actually let the jury know they had that power when a gentleman was using a religious defense for marijuana possession. And that guy was found not guilty. So I guess it's hard to say. In Ed Fortune's case, N.J. Weidman, the judge extremely hostile. At one point, wasn't even going to allow him to be his own defense because he was certain that Ed would blurt out jury nullification.
Wow, because I was under the impression that perhaps your opening and or closing statements would at least be some kind of safe haven for you to speak your mind.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But then that would imply that there's some ounce of credibility to the system. No.
Well, James, tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do down in Washington, D.C.
Well, D.C. is, the heart of the beast. D.C., the D.C. court down there is, it's a big one, and there's some metro stations that are very close to the court, and there's some pretty affordable advertising available in the subway stop. The Metro Rail has some advertising opportunities available. So I thought, you know what? Just in case, somebody we might like might be, say, on trial versus the man down there, we might want to have a campaign in place to make sure that everyone in the area knows about the power of jury nullification. So it's basically a simple billboard we've prepared that says, jury duty, know your rights, and kind of gives them sort of three of the highlights. You may and should vote your conscience. You cannot be forced to obey a juror's oath, and you have the right to hang the jury with your vote if you can agree with the other jurors. And we tell them to Google jury nullification, and that good jurors nullify bad laws. So that's kind of the focus, and it has nothing to do with any in particular that might happen to be in October. But we want to have it in place just in case there's an important trial coming up.
Will jury nullification still work if the government shuts down?
Well, I assume they just have to, if the government shuts down, I assume they just have to let everybody go, right? They just throw open the doors and say, I'm sorry, sorry for your trouble. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, that's kind of like why they're they're telling their HUD landlords right now that they're still going to be receiving checks after the government shuts down, because, the government shuts down and still sends out checks.
Well, the main teat suckers have got to get their teat juice no matter what.
Well, James, I thank you very much for calling in, because, I learned something tonight, a lot about the history behind jury nullification that I never knew. And I'm a history buff, but that is really interesting about William Penn, and that's really interesting how, it's been used back during the slavery days. And, we're not much different times. People think that everybody's free, but, we're really all just slaves on the big plantation, and we like to think of ourselves as abolitionists, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, we are abolitionists, and, this is one of the tools that we're going to use to, hopefully get a couple slaves to safety. That's really all we can do. And to me, this is very important activism, because I feel like, so much of what we do is educational, it's hypothetical, we hope it's going to have an impact, but it's really hard to measure. When you realize that, this kind of activism can take one man and send him home to his family instead of to a cage, I consider that worth a lot of my time.
That as well as the ramifications that come of it if you get this person out. Like in the case of Adam here, I know that when I was working there that he was getting about 1 million hits a month between his show and all his videos and stuff like that. That's a lot of influence for one man to just be able to say, hey, not guilty, let's get this guy back out spreading the message. Now, that might not be his mindset, but that will be the effect. And so it's a very important function, and like you said, it's a way for us to fight back against the state, and more than anything, I think it's a way to empower the mind of the common person, because you hear so often so much apathy of, what's one man going to do? What's one person going to do? And I think this kind of breaks that monotony.
Exactly. I mean, because it is one of the last remaining sort of vestigial freedoms left in the body of our government. It's like it's still there. We can use it until they're not going to like it, but as long as they need they need jurors to give their whole circus credibility. So until they just flat out deny anybody a jury, that power is going to be there, and we can take advantage of that.
Absolutely. And, I suggest if you ever get called to a jury trial, take that opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, please take that opportunity and go there, because, maybe the guy's a complete psychopath. All right. And you might be doing society a favor, whatever you would call it. And maybe the person's just like you and I. Maybe they just got behind on their tax payments on their property or their school taxes, or say their kid didn't go to school, their truancy officer. I mean, does a parent really deserve to go to jail because their kid doesn't want to go to a government institution? I mean, it's just the madness of all these laws. I mean, I heard one state you're not allowed to let your wife back out of her own driveway. It's against the law for the husband to do that. That's idiocracy. That's where we are. We're literally living the movie Idiocracy right now, with all these stupid laws put in place, and it's up to us, we the people, and as jurors and people, through the whole jury nullification awareness, we can wake people up one by one. And so, I completely support this, James.
Yeah, I think it's a genius idea how are they going to get away from it, if they have to take the subway in? And there's tens of thousands of people who use that subway. But I'd also like to ask you a question, James, can you think of any, whether big or small cases, can you think of any recent successes that have happened as a result of jury nullification getting an innocent person off?
Sure. Well, N.J. Weedman credits his success on jury nullification, and it's hard to say. He was facing charges for simple possession and also distribution. He was found guilty of simple possession, but he was found not guilty after 2 trials of he was found not guilty for distribution for having a pound of weed in his trunk. And he said, yeah, I had a pound of weed in my trunk. I'm NJ Weedman. Would you think I was going to have a joint? You know, but he didn't deny the quantity, which under normal circumstances would be just enough to say, okay, you're obviously distributing, because what normal person's going to have a pound? But he credits jury nullification. It may have been, it might not have been. Maybe the prosecution just didn't make their case on distribution. I can't say for sure. But that case I mentioned earlier, the one in New Hampshire, and I wish I remembered the gentleman's name, but the guy used a Rastafarian religious defense. He said, it's my religion, and I'm gonna smoke weed, and the law is wrong. Jury, say not guilty, and they did. It happens. So Bob Constantine, maybe about 2 years ago up in New Hampshire, was able to make an impassioned plea to the jury based on jury nullification, and he was partially successful. He ended up doing some time in jail. I think it was maybe 60 days, but it wasn't like 8 years that they were going for. The jury had an opportunity in that case to say, it wasn't just, they had a choice to say not just guilty or not guilty, but we could say guilty of these serious charges, not guilty, or we could say guilty of a lesser charge, and they went with that option. So it was a partial victory there, but not complete. The raw milk guy up in Wisconsin, that case, he had most of his charges thrown out, and they used jury nullification again, but they did find him guilty on one. They dump so many charges on you now that it's really tough.
I know.
So you can have total success. You can have total success, or you can have partial success. But we've seen examples of all of these. So we got to just keep hitting it.
And while we're on the topic, another case that I want to throw out there that is in dire need. Now, I'm not sure exactly where the case is, but another case that is in dire need of some FIJA jury nullification activism is our brother in Philadelphia, Fernando Salguero. For anybody who's not familiar, he was in Jersey and did the heinous crime of both being a volunteer firefighter and having mace and a baton in his car that was illegally gotten by using a robot to blow open his trunk literally and scaring the entire town because some dogs barked on the police officer's command. And so they put the town on lockdown, called a bomb threat, and found both mace and a baton in this firefighter's trunk. And now he is, which the mace is a weapon, is illegal in New Jersey, and he also had road flares, which are being called incendiary devices. So I just wanted to bring attention to that. That's definitely another case worth having some jury nullification activism go towards.
You got that right. I mean, if he does go to trial, and I'm still hoping they just drop everything with him. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but if he goes to trial, I told him personally, I will not rest until we have 100 volunteers out there. I think that's a reasonable goal for somebody as loved and respected as Fernando. And I can't see anything less than that being acceptable.
Well, it's definitely needed. I mean, the more as time goes on, the more they are trying to divide us, the more they are trying to scare us with their violent tactics of throwing us in cages for nothing. It's happening to me. It's happening to Adam. It's happening to Fernando. It's happening all the time around us. Is there anything that you want to touch on in the last 30 seconds before we go to break about this whole concept?
Well, for folks that are interested, go to FIJA.org, Fully Informed Jury Association. You can get all the research you want to do on jury nullification.
And they will give you free materials. They will give you free materials if you call them up and ask for them. So, all right, with that, we're going to let you go, James. Thank you very much for calling in.
All right, thank you.